Siblings' ultimate betrayal years ago comes back to haunt wedding plans. I feel compelled to share my story after seeing my brother's version of events online. For context, I'm a 24-year-old male, and my brother, who we'll call Turk, is 25, my fiancée is Maria, 24, and my ex is Jen, also 24, using the same names for clarity. Around 5 years ago, Turk started dating Maria, who is now my fiancée. Shortly after, they decided to set me up with Jen, Maria's best friend at the time. The four of us became close, spending a lot of time together since the girls were inseparable. Turk and Maria were together for about a year, and Jen and I dated for 9 months. Our relationship ended abruptly and devastatingly. I came home unexpectedly one day to find Turk and Jen in bed together at my place. The shock was immense. After processing what I had just witnessed, I immediately called Maria because I knew I would want to know if roles were reversed. She came over and together we confronted Turk and Jen. Their response was to break up with us, and incredibly, they started dating each other just 2 days later. It was a complete betrayal. To come home and find my brother with my girlfriend, only for them to then run off together, was crushing. I ended up moving back in with my parents to cope with the fallout. To make matters worse, my parents constantly talked about how happy Turk and Jen were, completely disregarding my pain. In the months that followed, Maria and I started talking and found solace in each other's similar experiences. We were both dealing with the aftermath of being hurt by the people we thought we were close to. About 4 months after our respective breakups, Maria and I officially started dating. Then 6 months after we were dumped, Turk's relationship imploded when he discovered Jen was cheating on him. She left him for someone else. I actually only learned about this recent development from reading Turk's online posts. Maria had received occasional messages from Turk attempting to reconnect, but she consistently ignored him. Fast forward to the present. Maria and I are happily engaged in planning our wedding for September. Initially, my parents were invited. However, my mother called me recently and declared she wouldn't attend unless I invited Turk. I responded that she shouldn't bother coming at all in that case. My mother has always had a blind spot for Turk. She can never see him do any wrong. Even when I told my parents everything that happened with Turk and Jen years ago, my mom attempted to defend his actions. While my relationship with my parents wasn't perfect, it was generally okay. After I uninvited my mother and subsequently my father as he stated he wouldn't come if she didn't, Turk started bombarding my phone with calls trying to get in touch with me. This is the first time he's attempted to contact me in 4 years. Apparently my parents told Turk about our wedding, which triggered this whole situation and them getting uninvited. He stopped calling now, but my phone is flooded with text messages from him, begging me to re-invite my parents and even hinting at wanting an invitation for himself. I just felt it was important to share my perspective on these events. Wow, the audacity is truly astounding, isn't it? Like and subscribe if you think parents enabling this behavior are just the worst. Entitled passenger thinks he can bully me out of my prepaid seat. Epic fail. Traveling to Las Vegas for a long-awaited reunion with friends, I made sure to pre-book my airline seat. This particular airline charges extra for seat selection, and knowing my needs due to a disability, I opted for a window seat with extra legroom, costing me an additional $45. Upon boarding, I was surprised to find a man already settled in my assigned seat, with another man in the aisle seat next to him, leaving the middle seat empty. I double-checked my boarding pass to confirm the seat number and then politely informed the man that he was in my seat, requesting him to move. Being a petite woman and facing two men who were easily over 6 feet tall and heavily built, I immediately sensed a power dynamic. As soon as they spoke, it became clear they were accustomed to using their size to get their way. The man in the aisle seat immediately dismissed my request, declaring that the man in the window seat wasn't obligated to move and that I could simply take the middle seat. He even had the audacity to tell me not to cause a scene. This condescending remark really ignited my temper. I maintained my calm tone, explaining that I wasn't trying to cause any disturbance, but was simply asking for the seat I had specifically paid for. At this point, the man in the aisle stood up, attempting to use his physical presence to intimidate me. However, life has equipped me to deal with such tactics. Having worked in frontline healthcare, I've encountered countless men who try to use their size and aggression to intimidate, and I've learned that it simply doesn't work on me, so I decided to shift my approach. I turned directly to the man occupying my window seat and proposed a deal. I told him that if he gave me $50 in cash, I would relinquish my seat to him. I explained that I had paid an extra $45 for the seat, and with taxes, it came to around $50. If he paid, the seat was his. He looked at me genuinely shocked and exclaimed, "You want me to pay you $50 for your seat?" I replied calmly, "So you're admitting you knew this wasn't your assigned seat? In that case, I'm going to call the airline staff and they can escort you to your correct seat. After all, I booked this seat specifically because of my disability, and you are essentially trying to take it from me." Suddenly, all eyes around us were on him, and the expressions were far from sympathetic. He turned beet red, mumbled something incoherent, and begrudgingly moved to the middle seat. He then pulled his hoodie over his head, sinking into a sulk for the remainder of the flight. His friend followed suit, equally deflated. The lesson here is straightforward. Don't rely on bullying tactics based on size or gender to get what you want. It can easily backfire and make your journey significantly less pleasant. Victory over a plane seat swiper, my satisfying airport encounter. I'm always entertained by the plane seat theft stories on Reddit, so I've been half expecting to encounter a seat bandit myself, especially with airlines practically forcing you to pay extra if you want to sit with your travel partner. My husband and I travel frequently for work, increasing our chances of running into such a situation. Well, it finally happened to me, and it was actually quite amusing. We always select seats towards the back of the plane. As we walked down the aisle, we spotted a woman and her young son, maybe around 11 or 12 years old, comfortably settled in our pre-booked seats. They were both engrossed in their phones when I politely told her that she was in our assigned seats. Having woken up at 3 a.m. to drive to the airport and running on minimal sleep, I was definitely not in the mood for any nonsense. She responded with a smile, informing us that they weren't seated together initially, and a stewardess had told her they could sit there. This was highly unlikely. I smiled back, maintaining my composure, and explained that we had paid for these specific seats and would like to sit in them. Her smile became a bit strained as she pointed to some empty seats further behind us, suggesting we could take those instead, since they were already settled in and comfortable. She questioned if it really mattered. I calmly replied that it did matter because the plane was still boarding, and those empty seats might be reserved. Plus, people sitting in random seats disrupts the system. Her smile was fading fast. She then suggested that if there were no other seats available after boarding was complete, they would move then. Usually I avoid confrontation and tend to be a people pleaser, so asserting myself was a bit challenging, but I felt proud for standing my ground. Meanwhile, my husband, navigating through the stream of boarding passengers, was trying to get the attention of a flight attendant. I sighed softly and, with a slightly exaggerated smile, said, "I'm sorry, but I just want to sit down and not stand here blocking the aisle, trying to figure out if there are empty seats when we've already paid for ours. And besides," I added, lowering my voice slightly for dramatic effect, "in the unfortunate event of a plane crash, I'd prefer the authorities to be able to identify our remains by our seat numbers for our family's sake." The boy, who had been glued to his phone throughout this entire exchange, suddenly looked up, his eyes wide with shock, darting between me and his mother. It was a deliciously satisfying moment. She stared at me, bewildered, for about 5 seconds of silence, before hastily gathering her belongings and nudging her son to move. I maintained my sweet smile, thanked her, and settled into my seat just as my husband returned with a flight attendant. I reassured the flight attendant that everything was fine and recounted the exchange to my husband. We both chuckled, and I'm pretty sure the mother overheard us, or at least I hope so. I didn't look back, but I could swear I felt a laser-like stare boring into the back of my head. Thankfully, it was only a 3-hour flight, so I didn't have to walk past them to use the restroom. The plane crash line? Absolutely brilliant. That is how you shut down a seat swiper with a touch of dark humor. Entitled "Woman's Do You Know Who I Am?" moment crumbles spectacularly. This incident occurred last Thursday, and it's been replaying in my mind ever since. I, 27 million, was en route to the metro station when I witnessed a rather bizarre scene. A short woman was aggressively confronting a man. I distinctly remember the snippets of their conversation. Translating from Dutch, it went something like this. The man, visibly distressed, exclaimed, "You've been following me since we were in the supermarket. What is wrong with you?" In a shrill, demanding tone, the woman retorted, "How rude. Do you have any idea who I am?" Without even thinking, the words just escaped my lips. "Actually, no. Why don't you tell us?" In that instant, I knew I might have inadvertently stepped into something awkward. Both individuals turned their gazes towards me, their focus now jointly on my unexpected interruption. The woman, now speaking with an air of extreme indignation, declared, "My husband is name. He is a highly respected accountant at company name." Neither the name nor the company registered any familiarity with me. Realizing there was no graceful way to retreat, I pressed on, "Akam, that's fascinating about your husband, but circling back to the original question, who are you?" Completely missing the point of my question, the woman continued undeterred, My husband received a significant promotion last month because of his instrumental role in interrupting her again. I firmly stated, yes, your husband's accomplishments are duly noted. But I'm genuinely curious, setting aside your husband, who are you as an individual, and what noteworthy things have you personally achieved? The man who was initially the target of her ire now sported a wide grin and added to the pressure, yeah, come on, Karen, enlighten us, using the now common term for entitled women. The woman's face flushed scarlet and she began to stammer, clearly struggling to formulate any kind of response. Sensing her lack of self-identity beyond her husband, I posed the question directly. Could it be that perhaps you haven't actually accomplished anything particularly significant on your own merit? The woman paused, actually appearing to contemplate this for a brief moment, and as the realization seemed to dawn on her, the color drained from her face, leaving her noticeably pale. I reiterated my question one last time. So to be clear, who are you and what important thing have you done? Remaining utterly speechless and unable to provide an answer, the woman simply turned abruptly and walked away, her face still ashen. I apologized to the man for interjecting myself into his situation, but he was genuinely appreciative, thanking me profusely for derailing the bizarre encounter. I still find myself pondering who she believed herself to be, and what led her to believe her importance was derived solely from her husband's profession. That deafening silence after "who are you?" are brutal but deserved. It makes you think, how many people only have borrowed importance? What are your experiences with this kind of thing? Mom's delusional house grab thinks a court will award her my property. During the housing market downturn, I managed to purchase a modest starter home entirely on my own. I lived there for nearly a decade before upgrading to a larger place with my husband. My parents expressed a strong desire to move into my old house as it was smaller and easier for them to manage. Given their history of foreclosure, securing a mortgage was out of the question for them. Plus my dad was retired and my mom wasn't employed. They proposed renting for me, but with a twist. They wanted to prepay the mortgage, around $50,000, using a substantial inheritance they had received in exchange for discounted rent. We drafted a lease agreement clearly stating that their payment was a prepayment of rent, and subsequently, their monthly rent would only cover property taxes and insurance, plus a nominal $350 per month. This amount would only increase if taxes or insurance costs rose. We both signed and notarized the lease, and this arrangement has been in place for several years. To be absolutely clear, I am not making a single cent of profit from this arrangement. Recently, I informed them that the rent would need to increase by a mere $3 due to a slight rise in our homeowner's insurance premium. My mother completely lost it. She launched into a tirade, calling me a money-hungry you-know-what, threatening to tear out all the landscaping and cosmetic improvements she had made, claiming I owed her and that I couldn't evict her because, in her mind, it was her house now. She also insisted she wasn't responsible for the insurance despite the lease explicitly stating otherwise, claimed insurance hadn't increased in a decade, ignoring the skyrocketing lumber prices and general inflation, and accused me of trying to make her pay for my personal homeowner's insurance on my current residence. She even declared that a court would see things her way and award her my house. We have a legally binding, notarized lease. They are explicitly listed as tenants. My name is the only one on the property deed. My father, in a rare display of spine, actually requested to see the bills to verify if I was ripping them off. For context, this house is within commuting distance of Manhattan, where even a studio apartment rents for around $1,500. This is an actual house with a large yard for their dog. I could easily rent it out for at least $2,000 even before they moved in. I provided them with copies of the tax and insurance bills, clearly showing the property address. I even pointed out that I was charging them the discounted tax rate that you get for paying in full early. I advised my mother to consult with a lawyer so they could set her straight on the realities of the situation. Apparently, my father agreed with me because now she's threatening to divorce him. Update. First, I want to express my gratitude for all the support. I was mainly just venting because I was incredibly upset after this whole exchange, especially given that I've been dealing with some health issues recently, which my parents are aware of, so it's been a roller coaster of emotions. I keep seeing a lot of the same questions. They've been living in the house for 4 years. My mother has always been entitled and has struggled with alcoholism. My childhood weekends and summers were often spent with the extended family, and my aunt later admitted it was partly to keep us away from the drinking. I primarily agreed to this arrangement for my father's sake, so he could finally retire after 36 years of physically demanding work and a recent heart surgery. They were the ones who asked to rent the house and proposed the mortgage prepayment as a form of rent, aiming to keep their major monthly expense to just health insurance. I had other potential renters interested, but I didn't solicit this arrangement. It was their idea. They did not co-sign on the original mortgage or contribute to the down payment. Their names are not on the deed or any ownership documents. We have had rent increases in the past due to rising taxes and insurance, and there was never any issue until this ridiculous $3 increase. My husband's father sadly passed away before he could enjoy his retirement, which was a significant factor in my husband urging my dad to retire and enjoy life. My husband's inheritance actually helped with the down payment on our current home. I suppose this $3 increase became my breaking point because my mom has a long history of entitled behavior and financial demands on me. Starting after high school graduation, I paid her $200 per week until I moved out at 20, while working around 65 hours a week on top of school to manage this. And yes, shockingly, they still managed to foreclose on their house after I moved out. I also foolishly added her to my phone plan and essentially paid her phone bill for 2 years because she only reimbursed me for 3 months of that period. She promised to contribute financially to my wedding but never did. They didn't pay for my college, and they stopped covering clothing and school expenses when I turned 16 and got a job. I recognize now that this is a parade of red flags, but I think I naively trusted my dad more than her and genuinely thought I was doing a good thing for them. I also want to retain ownership of this house because I love it and hope to move back there one day. It's just too small for our current family size. Or have it available for my child when they go to college and want some independence without the cost of dorms or parental oversight. Also, her divorce threats are a regular occurrence. I seriously doubt she'll actually go through with it over this. A court awarding her the house? Oh please, that's delusional. If you're loving this level of entitlement, like and subscribe for more. What's your favorite kind of entitled parent story? Let me know in the comments. Have a great day.